What's up, everybody? I'm about 5 days away from leaving for the Lost Coast Trail. This is a big deal hike for me. This is a bucket list hike. Very excited about it. Putting all my gear together, getting my kit together for the trip, and I thought it would be fun to share with you what I will be carrying on this epic journey. So, the first decision I had to make was what backpack am I going to carry? And I'd kind of immediately narrowed it down to either my Waymark Light 50 or my Superior Wilderness Designs Long Haul 50. And I think ultimately I've landed on the Waymark largely because it is going to be 4 days. It is going to be rough terrain. We're going to be walking over big boulders and through deep, wet sand and things like that. And the Waymark's just a little bit more comfortable, just like marginally more comfortable, but it's enough that I think it will make the trip more enjoyable. The primary difference between the two packs is that the Waymark has a full torso length foam pad. So I don't really have to concern myself that much with where things are in the pack to make sure nothing's going to be like jabbing me in the kidneys as I hike along. And it just makes it just a tiny bit more comfortable. They're both great packs. Either one would be perfect for this trip, but I can only carry one, and I'm going with the Waymark. A piece of gear that I'm very excited about that I purchased just for this trip is a brand new waterproof pack liner. Typically in a situation like this where I know that I'm going to be hiking in the rain, I know there's a possibility of my gear getting wet, I would just shove like a garbage bag or a trash compactor bag or something like that, you know, the old thru hiker trick. And that's kind of like an instant, easy, inexpensive waterproofing. But I really wanted something that was reusable, something that was a little more just ecologically friendly. And so I had Hilltop Packs make me a custom sized dry bag from their new hybrid material that is, it's partially recycled materials and partially new materials. The liner is 18 by 35, and the way I came to that measurement was I laid my Waymark pack out completely flat, empty, smushed it as flat as I could get it, measured the width, measured the length, and added an inch on either end. That way I've got plenty of room for all my gear. I can use the full capacity of my backpack, and I have plenty of room on the top to roll it down to get a nice, tight, watertight seal. In terms of a shelter for this trip, I've decided on my Durston Gear XMID 2. And the reason I'm going with the XMID 2 versus any of the other shelters I have at my disposal is condensation management. Of all the shelters I own, the XMID 2 is the best at just managing condensation. The design of the tent is really well thought out. When you do inevitably get some condensation, it all runs down the sides, none of it gets inside the tent, and that's going to be important on this trip. The theme of this trip is going to be moisture management. It's going to be a very different kind of hike for me. I'm very used to being up in the Sierras. I'm very used to being up over 9,000, 10,000 feet. This trip, I'm going to be walking right along the coast, right next to the ocean. We're going to be dealing with humidity, we're going to be dealing with rain, we're going to be dealing with wind. There's a lot of weather factors that have gone into my gear decisions for this trip. And ultimately, I feel the XMID is going to give me the best possible chance at a comfortable and dry sleep in that environment. My sleep system for this trip is the only thing that I am not 100% certain about. I'm going to be carrying my brand new Enlightened Equipment Apex synthetic quilt. It's a 30-degree quilt. We've been watching the weather as the trip comes closer, and we're going to have lows overnight in the mid to upper 40s. So a 30-degree quilt should be perfect for that environment. Something to consider, though, is that I'm used to, an overnight low of 40 in an arid, dry, high altitude situation. I have never really experienced 40 degrees with 100% humidity. So this could work out really, really well for me, or I could be setting myself up for 4 really uncomfortable nights. Only time will tell. In anticipation of not necessarily gear failure, but just not being as comfortable as I would like to be, I'm also going to carry my Sea to Summit Thermoreactor sleeping bag liner. And that way, if I do get a little bit too cold at night, in addition to supplementing with my clothing, I can supplement with that bag liner. In addition to the brand new quilt and the tried and true sleeping bag liner that I've had for decades, I'm also carrying a brand new sleeping pad that I haven't had the opportunity to field test. I recently picked up the Sea to Summit Etherlite XT insulated pad. It's got an R value of around 3.2, I believe. I will double check that and put it up on the screen somewhere in text. But when I purchased it, I had a plan to go on a hike, and I was going to use this trip to test out the quilt, test out the sleeping pad, make sure everything worked out well. And as happens a lot in the Tahoe Basin, we got midwinter snow and a lot of it. So I didn't get to go on that trip, and I didn't get to field test my new sleep system. I have set it up in the backyard, I've laid on it, I haven't slept a full night on it. So again, I'm just not 100% sure that this sleep system's gonna work out, but I am committing to taking it on the trip regardless. In terms of a cook system for this trip, I'm just going to bring my normal little 2-piece mess kit and titanium spork that I bring on every trip. But instead of bringing the MSR Pocket Rocket that I have been carrying for about the last year and a half, I'm going back to my Jetboil Minimo. And the reason I'm doing that is because we are anticipating some pretty high winds. And one of the things the Jetboil does better than any other stove I've tried is stay lit in the wind. So to set myself up for the best possible experience, I'm kind of going backwards into my gear catalog, bringing out an old faithful friend, and letting the Jetboil handle some high winds for me. I'll be carrying my Platypus Quick Draw water filter on this trip, and I chose that one over the other filter options that I have available because I've been carrying it for about 6 months now, and it's just proven itself to be reliable, easy to use, and remarkably easy to clean in the field. It's the easiest water filter I've ever used in terms of back flushing in the field and keeping that water flow steady. So again, I just want to set myself up for the best possible experience, so I'm bringing the water filter that I have found personally to be the easiest to use. Of course, I'll have my standard ditty bag with me with my first aid kit, my multi-tool, my reading glasses, because I need those these days, and just little first aid thing, blister care, some ibuprofen, things like that. And it's just kind of my standard ditty bag that I take on every single trip. In terms of clothing for this trip, I had to really think about the environment that I'm going to be in. I had to really kind of consider a lot of different factors. Number one, it's going to be very, very windy. Number two, there's a very high likelihood that we're going to have rain. The forecast right now shows at least 3 days with a 40 to 60% chance of rain. And I also had to consider some other environmental factors that I have not had to consider on other hikes that I've been on, things like ticks and poison oak, which are both really prevalent in this area. To that end, I've decided I'm going to wear long pants for the whole trip. So just a standard pair of lightweight, stretchy cargo pants that you pick up at almost any outdoor store. I'll be wearing my Topo Athletic, just trail shoes, but I'm adding gaiters this time. And that came from a piece of advice of a good friend who has hiked the Lost Coast Trail and said that he spent so much time dumping sand out of his shoes and he wished that he had had gaiters. So I have added gaiters to my kit, so hopefully I can avoid that particular problem. In terms of warmth, things that I can hike in to stay warm, and if necessary, sleep in to stay warm, I'll have my Outdoor Vitals Ventus midweight hoodie, and I'll have my Outdoor Vitals Loft Tech puffy jacket. I'm also going to be carrying my kind of shoulder season rain jacket, and it's a little bit heavier jacket than I would carry normally on a trip where the temperatures are going to be, you know, in the 70s and possibly even 80s during the day. But with the possibility of rain and it being coastal rain, I really want something that's going to do a great job of keeping me dry. It is rather heavy, and it's not going to be super comfortable if I have to wear it for extended periods of time, but I will be dry, and that is the primary factor in choosing that rain jacket over the other ones that I have in my arsenal. We'll also be carrying a bear can because it is required on the trail, and I'm a firm believer that if a wilderness area requires a bear can, you just carry one. I know that there's different ways of storing your food that might be equally safe, but in this particular case, we're going to be right on the coast, right on the beach. There's not going to be a lot of trees. Hanging a bear bag is probably not a realistic option. So the bear can is going to be the best option to store my food properly and keep bears from having human interactions. Well, there you have it. That is my kit for the Lost Coast Trail. I'm so excited about this trip. I can't wait to get out there, film this area, and share it with all of you. This is absolutely a bucket list hike for me, and as bonus points, our last day on trail, I turned 50 years old. So it's a birthday trip too. I can't wait to share the trip with you, and we will talk again soon.